F1 is an amazing sport and it has given us many moments of joy and excitement. However, there is always a dark side and the sport has its ups and downs, but there are some moments that just seem to be in bad taste and have left their mark on F1's history. Hello and welcome to our channel. Today we are going to tell you about the most disrespectful moments in F1 history. So let us begin. In every competitive sporting environment, there are always going to be players who are ready to bend the rules, if not outright break them, in order to acquire an unfair competitive advantage. This is made even more obvious in the world of Formula 1, where the margins of success and defeat are extremely slim, and the difference between winning and losing may be measured in milliseconds. Let's take a look at some of the biggest controversies in the sport. We start with the one and only occasion when all of the drivers flat out refused to compete. Drivers had much less influence over sporting decisions in 1982 than they do now. When a strike was called on the eve of the first race of that season, team managers and FISA, the sport's governing body at the time, were in complete control of the situation. Drivers arrived at the Kyalami track in South Africa, where the event was scheduled to take place, frightened by the new super license terms that FISA had suggested moving ahead. The body essentially wanted drivers to agree to broad new regulations that would make criticizing the sport's executives unlawful and allow teams to switch drivers without their consent. Didier Pironi and Niki Lauda, the two strongest opponents of the rule revisions, rallied all drivers save one to support a walkout. In order to ensure that the race did eventually take place 1 week later than anticipated, a temporary truce was put in place before anyone entered the track for practice on Thursday. After the strike was averted, F1 drivers and the Court of Arbitration for Sport made sure they would not be required to agree to the new rules of FISA. The incident served as a crucial turning point for Formula 1, as driver influence increased dramatically over the ensuing decades. F1's protagonist will play out any implications of a major scandal at 200 miles per hour. Gilles Villeneuve and Didier Pironi crashed at Imola in 1982. Ferrari was on for a 1-2 in Italy, something most drivers dream of, and just had to finish to assure a raucous response from the Tifosi. Alain Prost's Renault retired on lap 4, leaving the two Ferraris alone. Ferrari instructed them to slow it down. Villeneuve felt this meant stay station and that Pironi passing him was a stunt. He slowed down after passing Pironi. However, Pironi charged through with a hard pass in the last lap, something that Villeneuve vowed to never forgive. This already acrimonious intra-time struggle was to resume 2 weeks later at the Belgian Grand Prix in Zolder. As final qualifying came to a close, Pironi was locked into the pole position after posting a time that was 1/10 faster than Villeneuve's. Villeneuve left for a final attempt to defeat his French teammate, but never came back, hitting the back of Johan Mass's vehicle and dying as a result of the collision. Nelson Piquet Jr.'s Renault R28 collided with the wall outside of turn 17 on lap 14 of the first Singapore Grand Prix. The collision at the moment appeared to be minor. Piquet Jr. may have had the blood of 3 different world champions pulsing through him, but he was still a rookie. After Piquet became familiar with the barriers, the safety car was dutifully dispatched, which was fantastic news for his teammate and twice world champion Fernando Alonso. After making an early pit stop, Alonso was moved into first place as his competitors rushed to the pits while the race was still under the safety car. Alonso maintained the lead and won the race. When Piquet's driving privileges were threatened in 2009, the truth came to light. His father then disclosed that the plotting of Renault's team principal, Flavio Briatore, and its engineering director, Pat Symonds, was responsible for the incident. Piquet moved to NASCAR and later formed Formula E. Symonds and Briatore were both banned and then unbanned, and Alonso changed teams to Ferrari in 2010. Senna prevailed to win his first championship in 1988. Alain Prost and Senna's first season at McLaren together. However, Senna had become the hunter by 1989 and needed to defeat Prost in the last race at Suzuka to win his second championship. By the end of the first lap, the Brazilian had fallen from first to third due to a poor start. Senna quickly overtook the race leader after switching to fresh tires, but their duel would finish disastrously when Prost turned into Senna at the final chicane, breaking the latter's front wing. Despite Senna miraculously recovering to win the race and thus the title, despite Prost's irreparable injuries. Surprisingly, Ayrton was then penalized for taking an escape route to get back on track. A year later, Prost took out Senna from the race, exacting his revenge for the previous event. New F1 viewers will only be familiar with the sport's lone tyre supplier. The disputed supply has been Pirelli since 2010, but in 2005, Formula One was embroiled in a tyre war as two manufacturers squared off. Bridgestone provided the rubber for Ferrari, Jordan and Minardi, while Michelin supplied the rubber for the remainder of the field. The Michelin tyres came under fire when Toyota's Ralf Schumacher slammed into Indianapolis's famous concrete wall at a high rate of speed during Friday's practice session. All of the Michelin runners would be forced to withdraw from the 2005 US Grand Prix because they were unable to reassure the drivers and teams that their compounds were secure for racing. As a result, all but 6 cars remained on the track, and the winning players were met by boos and jeers from the crowd. In Formula One, teams are accustomed to discussing one another's strategies to put their best foot forward. But in 2007, a Ferrari chief mechanic is believed to have given McLaren access to a significant amount of technical data pertaining to the team's vehicles, strategies, and money. The espionage was only discovered after a Ferrari enthusiast in Woking reported to Maranello that McLaren engineer Mike Coughlin was copying what appeared to be secret team documents. He and Stepney were quickly exposed, and McLaren was fined $100 million and excluded from the 2007 Constructors' title for trying to use Stepney's data. Because of his lack of sportsmanlike conduct during the 1994 and 1997 seasons, some people claim that Michael Schumacher will never be considered the greatest driver in Formula One history. When Schumacher was competing in the Australian Grand Prix in 1994, he collided with Damon Hill's Benetton, which cleared the way for Schumacher to win the Drivers' Championship. Despite this, he was given a pass. Having said that, Michael Schumacher never learned from this incident and did the same thing with Jacques Villeneuve in 1997, although this time an FIA inquiry led to the former being disqualified from the race. So that is all the time we had today, folks. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and do hit the bell icon on your way out. See you all next time.